Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another BRAP rant. Very impromptu rant, by the way. It wasn't. I haven't done one of these in a long time. I haven't done a lunchtime rant. I was going to go earlier at 12, but didn't have the time to do it. 1 o'clock was the best option for me. But welcome, everyone. Greetings. And please do me a favor. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat. Do me a solid. Retweet the link. Or share it on your favorite social media platform. Let everyone know we're live. So, I love Prawn says, why is everyone doing early streams? I'm not sure. Who else is doing early streams? I haven't seen any early streams. I've been working most of the day, so I'm not exactly sure who else. But I know there's some other shows that do like weekly shows. Jez did one. Okay, I wasn't aware that Jez did a stream earlier today. Yeah, no, people, I mean, there's other content creators who do like weekly live shows. I think like late morning, early afternoon. So, Twisted Sin starting off the show with a $2 super chat. Says people need to stop pocket watching others. I don't disagree with that, Twisted Sin. I agree with that 110%. And so the reason why I want to do this rant is because there's been a lot of just weird conversations around PS5 Pro. I just don't understand the anger at times behind it, and some of the look. You've been watching the show for a long time. I'm not one to delve into media bias and stuff like that. You know, that there's some kind of media conspiracy against Xbox or PlayStation. I just don't think there is. But I will say, one thing that we've talked about on this show recently is just kind of coverage, but not all media sites, but some media sites, really in particular IGN. The media coverage with gaming has just been, I don't even know how to describe it. Not hasn't been good. There's some bad takes. I mean, like 47 saying bad news sells. I don't disagree. I think that's just the sign of the times. I think what's happened is this 24/7 news cycle. And that clearly people tend to gravitate towards negativity, I feel like, on social media. I really hope we can get away from that. We probably won't. But it seems like a lot of the negativity, a lot of the tribalism, a lot of the conspiracy theories that we see in like politics today is really seeped into gaming. And it's very unfortunate because gaming, in entertainment form, it's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. And I don't understand why sensationalism and anger has overtaken what should be good conversations. Again, if you don't find the PS5 Pro to be of interest to you, that's fair. If you think it's overpriced, that's fair. But some of these takes from some of the media sites, and again, this is not to defend the PS5 Pro. I'm sure someone's been like, "Oh, Brap, you're just defending the PS5 Pro because you're a pony." No, that's not it. I think we just need to have better conversations around gaming, and I've been saying that for quite some time here on this show. And again, I think the PlayStation 5 Pro is another example of just the bad conversations around gaming. I mean, we look at things like. And I think I will say this. There's bad conversations, but I think there's also important conversations to have about the $700 price point of the PS5 Pro. But it's not for the reasons that I think people think we should be having, or the kind of conversations people think we should be having, like as in, oh, this thing is terrible and greedy Sony. Like, no shit. Like, companies are greedy by nature. All companies are greedy. Microsoft's greedy. Google's greedy. Sony's greedy. Coca-Cola's greedy. I mean, greed is what drives capitalism. Companies are here to make money, and I think as consumers we need to understand that. I think as consumers we also remember we have a choice too. We don't have to buy the PlayStation 5 Pro, and I see journalists articulate an argument against why the PlayStation 5 Pro may not be a good thing for all consumers. But again, I don't think we're having the right conversations. The PS5 Pro is not for all consumers. It's an enthusiast device, and part of my frustration with the conversation around this particular PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's the same thing when the Xbox One, when Microsoft released the Xbox One X. I remember people saying, "Oh, who asked for this? Who's this for?" And blah 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 blah. And I'm like, guys, this is for an enthusiast consumer Those enthusiast consumers exist within the console space. Just a lot of the and it's crazy that we have to talk about this, but it's just kind of a reminder is why I do these rants, because I don't feel like people talk about this enough. But we got to remember the gaming market it's a stratified market, meaning that there's different levels of consumers. Consumers behave differently within the video game industry, even within the video game console industry. Not every consumer is the same. Not every consumer has the same requirements, use case for consoles. Not every consumer consumes video games the same way on console. And so I see a lot of this thing, if it's not for me, then it's not for the industry, and therefore it doesn't make sense. And no, it's not entirely true. It just means that it's not for you. Or if it's for me, then it means that it's for the entire industry. And again, no, just because you think it's for you doesn't mean that everyone else in the industry or every consumer feels the same as you. And I think that people tend to apply that mindset that if it doesn't make sense in my mind, it doesn't make sense for the industry. And it's like, no, like, again, it may not make sense for you. It may not check your requirements as a consumer, but it may check the boxes for someone else. And I haven't been seeing that with a lot of the media coverage recently. Like, it's interesting. I saw an IGN article, as a matter of fact, that said build the equivalent to PS5 Pro, and they didn't even use the Pro parts. They didn't even use, I say they didn't even use the Pro parts. They didn't even pick PC parts that were would be equivalent, quote unquote, equivalent to the PS5 Pro. The GPU they selected doesn't have AI in its silicone, doesn't have RDNA 4 ray tracing features. The motherboard that they picked out, that IGN picked out, doesn't have the same features of the PS5 Pro. The motherboard's not equivalent in the sense that it doesn't have Wi-Fi 7, doesn't have the audio. I forget what the audio is for PlayStation. 3D audio, and it doesn't have Bluetooth. And then IGN picked a SSD, but it was a 1 terabyte SSD, and didn't even meet the minimum requirements of the PlayStation 5 requirements for an SSD within, if you're going to add an SSD to your PlayStation 5, didn't even meet those requirements. It was only 1 terabyte as opposed to the 2 terabytes of a storage space that the PlayStation 5 gives you. So it's one of those things, those examples where I just feel like it's just a weird, just kind of a weird article to write. It's not accurate. It's not, it's not, if you're going to say it's equivalent, it's not equivalent at all because of the things that I just said. When you look at the GPU, it's got missing feature sets that are on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Therefore, that's not equivalent. And they ran that article, and I just kind of a head scratcher. Was kind of going back and forth with Brian Altano, and I said, "Look, Brian, I mean," because he said I said, IGN put out an article that PlayStation 5 Pro, you can build the equivalent of the PlayStation 5 Pro for $700. And he goes, "No, that's not what the article says." You read a couple lines down. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, it doesn't say that, but the implication is when you think equivalent, at least for me as a consumer, I'm thinking not just parts, but I'm also thinking from the headline. And I understand he's like, oh, it's up to every reader to read that. I get that, but we know this, Brian, that not every reader is going to read past the headline. And in this instance, I read a few lines and went down to the parts because I wanted to see what parts they picked out, because that was more of the meat of the article was the different parts they picked out. But even then, I mean, if you're going to say equivalent, I said this to Brian, but the reality is, what I was really hearkening on was the fact that you guys pick parts that aren't equivalent. That is the issue I had with the article, and that's why I say it's an inaccurate article. Because you're not picking parts that are equivalent to what would be found in the PS5 Pro, and some of these parts lack specific feature sets that are going to be native in the PlayStation 5 Pro. So I just thought it was really kind of a weird thing, but signs of the times, I guess. With gaming media, I think. Again, I don't, and I said this too in the tweet. I don't think that's media bias against IGN, media bias against Sony. I just think that it's, like IGN looking to engage and drive traffic to its website, and it just is what it is. And I think we have to be mindful of that as consumers, as connoisseurs of media. we need to be careful and just do our due diligence, and not be so reactionary. I mean, that is what they monetize. They monetize off the reaction, the anger. And I feel like there's a lot of anger and angst in gaming. Oh my God, I can't believe this, or this game looks like an L, and this game is that. I mean, I think we tend to jump to a lot of conclusions without really having all the pieces of information in front of us. At times we can do that based on maybe some tangible evidence that we have available to us at that time, and kind of connect that to past performance, whether it's the past performance of a specific developer or a platform owner, things like that. But people just get, it seems like off the break, they just tend to get really angry, and that's what I saw at the PlayStation 5 Pro, the announcement. Again, I was there with you. A lot of people, the sticker shock, $700, like holy shit, like that's that's a lot of money. Game Logic, big shout out to Logic. He put out a great tweet this weekend where he talked about the history of consoles, and consoles being historically expensive too. So when you look at the history of video game consoles, we've had a history of seeing enthusiast consoles. The Neo Geo comes to mind. I think the Neo Geo when it came out was like $600. This is in the 90s, early 90s. The Sega Saturn was $400. I believe it was $400. Actually, let me double check that. Sega Saturn launch. Now I'm curious. $400. There we go. It was $400 in 1995. So I mean, that was I like to do my microeconomics here. $400. See how much $400 in 1995 is worth today. So $400 in 1995, which was the cost of the Sega Saturn, was the equivalent to $826 today. And that's at about 2.5% inflation. And look, I mean, I think this is and I'm not saying, look, what I'm going to say here is what I'm about to say is not that, I'm not saying that you can't look at that $700 price point and say that's not for you. That's fair. What I am saying though is I think as consumers, as informed consumers, I think we need to understand that the price of video games, of consoles are going to go up. Again, I'm not defending Sony's choice to sell the PlayStation 5 Pro at $700. This is just more of a realistic comment on the fact that consumer prices go up. I mean, I mean, the Atari was under $200, I believe, when it released. What was the Atari price? Let me look at that too. Atari 2600 release price. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, so in 1980, the Atari 2600 was, I'm sorry, not 1980. The launch price of the Atari 2600 in 1977 was $189.95. That is equivalent to about almost $1,000 today. Let's look at the Neo Geo. The Neo Geo was $650 when it launched. That's equivalent to about $1,500 today. And that was an enthusiast console. It was an enthusiast machine. So you look at and so I bring these up. Obviously, the Neo Geo is no longer around. Didn't really have a lot of market success, and this kind of goes back to my point about people being outraged. Look, I get it. $700 price point isn't for you. Fair enough. But, like when we had Detective C's on last week as a guest, one of the things he mentioned is like, look, the market's going to do what the market's going to do. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. The market is going to either reject this. And Logic brought up a great point with I think it was the Nintendo 3DS handheld, I think launched at like $250 and didn't really sell well for Nintendo. And Nintendo ended up like lowering the price, I think by $80 or $100. I think it was $80. They reduced the price. So here's the thing. The reality is this. The price is what it is. Again, if it's not for you, if you feel like it's not justified, that's fair. It is it's for an enthusiast consumer who's willing to pay that price. And now all of us are willing to pay that price. Not the PS5 Pro is not going to check everyone's requirements. It's just that's the reality of it. What I don't understand is people who are shouting out and being angry about the price point when this thing doesn't check their requirements as a consumer. That I don't understand. I don't think we do this with any of the consumer goods. If I don't see something as value as a consumer, I just move on with my life. I don't get angry. I don't get upset. I'm not here on X trying to convince everyone else why this is a bad thing. I'm not yelling at people who feel like this is a good investment for them. I'm not telling people that they should build a PC. I'm not doing any of those things. With other consumer goods, I'm just minding my own business. I'm making a choice as a consumer. I'm saying this is for me or this is not for me. And that's it. And I just move on with my life. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm not putting too much thought. I'm not doing the mental gymnastics. I'm not doing any of that. And I think sometimes some of the reaction that I see is just that, like this, and then you have people who are monetizing, content creators who are monetizing off of the misery of other people. I mean, it's crazy. Like you can make money off the misery of other people or people being angry, without having to form any or without having to put any critical thought into the content you're creating. You're just monetizing off the anger of people. Just pouring gasoline on the whole situation. That's not what we do here. Whiskey Neat says, yo, BRAP, wanted to give you my input. I'm a mid-level PC user. Skipped this console gen for the first time. I would buy the Pro, but now I have to replace my TV too. PS5 Slim disc. It is for me. A big shout out to Sam Walton says, I'm here. I'm there day one. All I need now is for Sony to show what they've been working on, going off their track record for the second half of their console cycle. I'm expecting fire. So yeah, I mean, they may have a better second half of this console gen. We'll see. But look, for me personally, I'm not there day one. I mean, I need to see more of the content, either third-party content that's coming out. I know Assassin's Creed is coming out on PS5 Pro, but I'm not. That's just one game that's probably not enough. That's not enough to move the needle for me to go out and buy a PS5 Pro, unless GameStop is giving some crazy trading value for my PS5. Then I would probably do it. But yeah, I mean, I don't. It's just been weird to me, the conversations that I've been seeing on social media by content creators, by media sites. It's just weird. I don't understand the anger over this. I mean, everyone has different requirements. I mean, some people are like, I want to see more games. Other people are like, hey, I'm there day one. I want to go back and play The Last of Us, Tilu 2. I want to go back and play Spider-Man 2. You may have people that have never played those games that are like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I haven't played all those games, but I want to upgrade. I want the definitive experience of those titles. You have people that are like, hey, you know what? I want to future-proof myself a bit. I'm going to go and take the $410 that GameStop is giving right now for trade-in and apply towards the PS5 Pro. I want to future-proof myself a bit. Yeah, I don't watch Linus Tech Tips after everything that happened with him. I don't know what he said about the Pro. Yeah, that's the thing. People like, and that's did Astrobot sell well? It seemed to do well, and I think I don't know. I think the UK chart was like number 2. I don't know. And that's that's an interesting conversation about Astrobot because people are like, oh, if it doesn't sell like 2 million copies, it's a failure. Well, you don't know that because you don't know what their internal OKRs are for that game. You don't know how the developers define success or Sony's define success for that title based on the budget that they've spent on that game. We don't know what the ROI is. We don't know any of that stuff. I think it's interesting when people say that. AAA games we could probably ballpark because we have a little more information in terms of the average cost of AAA games. But even then you don't know. Yeah, and TWS Gaming, and this is where I take issue with. I think it's funny, but it's also currently kind of unfortunate. It's just not that exciting at the moment for most people. Maybe cool, but it's not hitting on the need. It now feeling. It's not hitting on the I need it now feeling. What is that based on? Twitter? A content creator? Again, like I don't understand. Like we got to be careful. We shouldn't be making definitive statements like this. It's not exciting for most because we do this. I give it an example. They did this with the PlayStation Portal. I remember the same conversation. PlayStation Portal. They did this. The like to dislike ratio, yeah, but understand TSWS the like to the like to dislike ratio too. It's a very small segment of the population, very small. And so I see this in the GPU space. People upset about the 4070s or 4080s. They sold well. People are upset about the PlayStation 2 Portal, saying that people remember the DualSense Edge. Oh, the battery life. The PlayStation Portal has been very successful for Sony. The PlayStation DualSense Edge has been very successful. So we need to be aware as consumers that a like to dislike ratio isn't an indicator of whether or not is a small indicator of what we see in social media. The social media is what, maybe 1% of gaming. Somebody had some. It was a while back. Somebody had some statistics on. So TSWS Gaming. It's small, but it's telling on excitement. It's telling on excitement based on a very small sample size, which means it isn't you can't reach a conclusive, definitive statement based on a small sample size. Like, we got to stop doing this. Like, it drives me. It's one of my pet peeves. It drives me bonkers because that kind of take leads to a lot of misinformation. It feeds that console war narrative. And Brian E said it's like judging the wealth of the U.S. based on what you see in New York. Yeah, it's not representative of the entire. So you think Sony is fine seeing a lot of dissatisfied people? Again, how many dissatisfied? How many? What percentage of the population? What percentage of the population is represented here? The only thing that and this is where I think if you're going to make comments about the market, TSWS, then you should have a better understanding of how the market works, the free market. And it's like Detective C said, the market's going to react the way it's going to react. Okay. Sony doesn't care what even for argument's sake, let's say it's 25% of, and we know this because there's tangible statistical evidence here that 25% of the PlayStation consumer base is very unhappy with this. Even then, that might not be like Sony. That's not going to elicit some kind of emotional response from Sony if they see that many dissatisfied people. What will actually influence Sony is if the market reacts in a way that tells Sony, hey, $700 PS5 Pro, we at that price point, we are not buying it. That's what happened with the PlayStation 3. And so what will Sony do? It's what happened when the Nintendo, I think it was the 3DS, the one was priced at like $250, whatever. And so what Sony will do is then, okay, well, our market analysis, because Sony's also looking at when they price these, when they price products, they're doing a market analysis. They're looking at what other similar what other similar devices are out there in the marketplace. And Sony feels like, hey, at a premium price, we think $700 is fair, based on things like, they may be looking at things like handhelds, things like that. TSWS says, where was the market analysis on Concord? I mean, look, they did their analysis. They rolled the dice, and it just is what it is. And the market reacted. And what did Sony do? Sony said, you know what? We're going to discontinue the game and refund our consumers. The market did what the market does in the case of Concord. But honestly, TSWS gaming, but Concord has nothing to do with PS5 Pro. So let's not obfuscate here, TSWS. Let's focus on PlayStation 5 Pro, because you're using Twitter. You're using content creators with a very small subset, maybe 1% of the population is reacting on the announcement of the PlayStation 5 Pro. That is enough. That's not enough information to make some kind of you said dislikes. You said likes or dislikes don't matter. They don't. No, I didn't say that. What I said was you can't make a definitive statement based on a like to dislike ratio based on a small subset of a gaming population. That's not giving you any kind of true indicator. That just means within that small group that there's a higher dislikes to likes. You don't know the consumer profile of the people who've liked or disliked the PS5 Pro on Twitter. You don't know whether or not they are the target group, the target demographic. You don't know what socioeconomic class they fall into, which is going to influence the kind of products they buy. I mean, this thing is more nuanced, TSWS, than just, oh, well, all the content creators are hating on it, or, oh, look at the like to dislike ratio. We could say the same about Concord. Okay. But Concord wasn't a good game. There have been other examples of games that didn't have good receptions, or didn't have a good reception per se, and actually did well. We almost go through this with Call of Duty almost every year. People complain about Call of Duty. And ends up being the best game. Madden, same thing. Ends up being a... But TSW, Concord didn't fail because of likes and dislikes. I mean, yeah, I understand you saying, well, we can look at the likes and dislikes of, or the engagement numbers of Concord, but the engagement numbers are more telling than the likes and dislikes. The actual beta numbers, because that's the market right there. No, what I'm saying, TSWS, is that you have people that are complaining about Call of Duty to Concord, or I'm sorry, Call of Duty, and then every year it ends up being a game that's the top selling game. My point is that, and again, I think you're trying to obfuscate the point here, TSWS, and you're doing the whole console war thing that people do. So yeah, exactly. So of course we can't say this console is anything until it comes out, and that's my point. You're saying there's no excitement on the PS5 Pro, and you're basing that off likes and dislikes of a very small subset of the consumer base, and you don't even know if that consumer base is the consumer that will buy the PS5 Pro, or if that consumer is somebody who has no interest in buying the PS5 Pro. OBJ Don says, I've never seen so much mindless hate for an optional product. And that's the other thing. It's a great point, OBM. I mean, OBJ Don, like this is an optional purchase. TSWS says, I'm just saying as it looks, it doesn't look good from the outside looking in. Where's all the hype? I mean, I don't base look, I don't live in social media, TSWS. And I think that's part of the issue, is that people take very small echo chambers and apply that to the rest of the market. Where's the hype? I mean, there are people that are hyped, that are excited about the PlayStation 5 Pro if you're using X or social media as an example. Sure. I mean, but this goes back to when the PlayStation 4 Pro was announced, when the Xbox One X was announced. It was the same thing. Who asked for this? Who asked for this? There's no hype. And I don't remember what the One X did. I'd have to go back and pull those numbers. But clearly the PS4 Pro did well enough for Sony to feel like, okay, we're going to R&D and greenlight a PS5 Pro. It was only about 15% of the market. Boober Country, the $5 super chat says, IGN was so unprofessional covering the Pro. Opinion was fine, but that was borderline lies. It was a technical preview, not a state of play showcase. I think you're mentioning the article that I touched upon earlier. Greg Van News says, BRAP, I bought a $1,200 projector. Come to find out they sell higher end, more expensive projectors. How dare they? Yeah, TSWS, I would just, again, I think a fair assessment would be like what I'm seeing on social media, what I've seen. There tends not to be a lot of hype, but I wouldn't definitively say there's no hype at all, because again, you're looking at a small subset. If you want to say within that subset of people, maybe, but again, you don't even know the consumer demographic that subset of consumer falls into. Again, are they the addressable market of the PS5 Pro? The One X and Pro were fine last gen. It's just so much more expensive this time around. Yeah, I get it. The $700, I get that. But again, you don't have to buy it. And I think I understand the sticker shock, but I think we're at a point now where it's like, do I know the consumer demographic? No, TSWS, but I'm not out here making definitive claims. I'm not saying that people are not hyped or people are hyped. I mean, you're the one that said that there's no hype from what you see on social media. That's why I asked you the question. I mean, who are these people? I mean, are these people part of the addressable market? Maybe, maybe not. You don't know. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Corey Massey. Like, social media gaming community is going to kill the hype of most things. I mean, I based on what I see come across my timeline, like, people tend to just poo-poo on things quickly. Oh, that's an L. That's an L. That looks mid. It's like, geez, like let the game come out. Judge a game on its merits when it releases. Let's not try to kill a thing by the first screenshot we see. Again, the market is going to do. Sony, the one trick pony, says launching the PS5 Pro without a big exclusive for maybe an entire year was stupid. We don't know if there aren't going to be any exclusives within the launch window. I mean, there's older exclusives you can play on there. We don't know what else they're going to have. I mean, the one thing I will say is, to your point, Sony, the one trick pony, is that, and that's a terrible name, by the way. I hope to God you're not an adult. And if you are, that's, again, a commentary on the sad state of affairs at times in the gaming community. You have adults that are behaving like children. But if you think that, look, if you feel like, hey, as a consumer, if your requirement is that they need to have a PS5 Pro, or they need to have a launch exclusive with the PS5 Pro, then just wait for it. If you're interested in a PS5 Pro, just wait. You don't have to have it day one. Gregor Von Doom says, Xbox guys love when consoles launch without exclusives, though, so why the hate? I don't disagree with that. I've seen some of the console warriors do that. I don't necessarily disagree with that, Gregor Von Doom. And that's what I'm saying. The conversation around gaming is very disingenuous at times, especially the console war side of things. Yeah, but Johnny, you have to say something. Some people may have a requirement. They maybe not feel Astrobot is within their wheelhouse or worth the purchase of a PS5 Pro. They may say, no, I want to see, because when I bought the PS4 Pro, for example, I bought it at launch. I knew that Horizon Zero Dawn was coming out in February, and then there was God of War, and I could replay Tilo on it, and I was just like, yeah, like I bought it because I knew those games weren't. We're the same thing. I mean, I knew those games were coming, and so it was like, okay, I know and so for me as a consumer, I want to see those things, and it's kind of why I'm holding off for the PS5 Pro, or holding off on it. And that could change. I mean, they may show us stuff. I mean, there's some rumored. I mean, Detective C's was on here last week, and he said there could be a December showcase, and that's really where going to show a lot of the big stuff that they're working on. TSW says, weren't we making fun of Xbox for launching a product with nothing really new? It's the same thing. It's not the same thing, TSWS, because there's a difference between a mid-gen refresh and a launch console. We have, I mean, if you look at the One X and the PS4 Pro, those games didn't necessarily have launch titles with them, because mid-gen refreshes aren't going to haven't had those those launch titles to go along with them. And so I think there's a difference there between launching a console, a new generation of consoles, where the expectation is launch title. We've never had that in the mid-gen refresh. But again, I mean, I think this conversation is a bit, and people are talking about hype and overblown. I mean, like, okay, so there's no hype on Twitter, and so what? I mean, again, like the thing that, I was talking to Logic about this, and he said this earlier. He said what he's interested in, just from a business perspective, and I don't disagree with him, is how the market's going to react to the PS5 Pro at $700. And to extent, that's what I'm interested in. I frankly don't care about the like to dislike ratio on Twitter. That's not really that doesn't tell me anything. Mr. Chen says BRAP Digital Foundry's latest podcast said they were surprised on the quality of the PSSR upscaling. Yeah, no, I did hear that too. Yeah, and we know there's a subset of consumers that will buy mid-gen refreshes to play the best versions of games in their library. And we know that there's consumers that are going to say, no, this isn't for me. We know there's going to be consumers that will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to wait. What I don't understand is the mental gymnastics behind all of this, because it's really very simple. It's you're either going to buy it or you're not going to buy it. It's an option, as OPJ Dadon said. So I just don't think we do this with other consumer products. Do we argue at do we make commentary at GMC for making the base model Yukon versus the Denali? Do we ask GMC who the Denali's for, or who asked for a Yukon Denali? Do we yell at Lamborghini for making expensive products? I mean, and I think as consumers, we look at these things, we look at where we fall within that market stratification for different consumer products, and we act appropriately. We either buy or don't buy. I'm not yelling at BMW for making the 7 Series or the X7 almost $100,000 SUV. I'm not the target consumer for that. I'm not. As a consumer, TSW says, as a consumer, you want the best deal that makes sense. We have to see what this thing has, because to me, what they showed was not exciting. Okay, that's you though. That is those are your requirements as a consumer. Not everyone feels the same way as you, TSWS. As a consumer, you want the best deal that makes sense for you. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. The problem is that everyone takes that and they apply it to the rest of the rest of the market. Mr. Chen says, BRAP, what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to the PS5 Pro? Look, I think the upscaling technology, the AI upscaling technology is interesting. I want to see more hands-on with it. I mean, no one has had really hands-on with the PS5 Pro yet, so I'm interested to see what the real world performance looks like for games on the PS5 Pro. And then I want to see what else Sony has coming in the pipeline. If they have like another God of War in the pipeline, or they show us Wolverine, or there's some other first party game that's coming in the pipeline. Maybe Cory Barlog's sci-fi game that he's working on that's going to be exclusive. Then, and not just first party, but third party. If they have any third party exclusives, how those games are going to perform in the PS5 Pro. Now, I'm going to go back to what you said, TSWS. As a consumer, you want the best deal that makes sense. Do you mean best deal like monetary? Are you speaking like a good deal in terms of dollars paid? Because if you are, I mean, that again, consumers are going to have different requirements there too, where money's not necessarily in the thought process as much as, do I value what this product does for me? Does it check my does it check all the requirements? Because there are consumers out there that money's just not even in the equation. But it's interesting. Like I've seen, I think it was Jason Schreier, his article. He had mentioned something that the what did he say? I need to look this up now. What did Schreier say? He said something to the effect of, he said the PlayStation 5 Pro doesn't feel like the console of the future. It feels like a vestige of the rapidly disappearing past. And it's interesting. I've seen people kind of also run with this particular narrative about the Nintendo Switch being proof positive of the fact that that people maybe don't want the latest and greatest of graphics, and they want cheap entry points into gaming. And I think we need to understand something. Those people are probably not the consumer demographic PlayStation is chasing. And to Schreier's point about the PS5 doesn't feel like the console of the future, I mean, I've never looked at mid-gen refreshes as consoles of the future. Those have typically, in my opinion, been more of the new consoles that come out at the start of a new console gen. And so I've seen and I've read this comparison to the Nintendo Switch. I think Brian Altano on IGN said, Sony should release a $350 console to bring more people in, or bring the PlayStation 4 people in. And again, people that want cheap access to gaming, that is a different consumer that Sony may not be chasing. And I think we need to understand that. It's like saying, hey, I think Ruth Chris Steakhouse should offer $15 steaks. Well, Ruth Chris is in the business to offer $15 steaks. They're going after a different consumer. And this goes back to the market stratification, or how stratified the market is. We have consumers that want to experience, consume games differently. We have consumers that want to consume games like they're like a commodity. They just want games cheap. We have gamers that want quality experiences. They want high-end experiences. Hey, Ice Queen Gaming. They want a 4080 card. They want to run, full-on ray tracing. They want big AAA blockbuster experiences. Again, like where I disagree with this idea of, gamers don't want, games with big graphics. That's not true. Clearly a market exists for that, because we still get AAA games. And then we also have games that don't cost a lot to make and that are cheaper in price. We have Nintendo that has a Nintendo Switch, and it doesn't offer all the visual bells and whistles. But there are people that in the market that want that kind of experience. And I think we tend to forget that the gaming space is very stratified. The consumer base is market stratification, and it's no different than when you look at cars and you see different models of vehicles. You know, the Honda Pilot has its base model, you know, and has a mid-level model, and then has the high-end model. TSWS consoles have never been cheap, though. I mean, I don't know how you were arriving at the conclusion that Sony has wanted to be super expensive for some time now. I mean, are you basing out the PS3? I mean, look, Xbox is releasing a $600 box with 2 terabyte with the only differentiator being a 2 terabyte a hard drive. Gaming is just expensive. Console gaming has always been expensive. TSWS. I don't know if you were here when I was rattling off the price of the Atari 2600 in 1977, released for $189. That's the equivalent to paying $1,500 today. Or was it $1,500? No, I'm sorry. About over $1,000 today. The Neo Geo, when it released at $650, is equivalent to paying about $1,500 today. And the Neo Geo didn't succeed because there wasn't because the market just rejected it. So again, I go back to this. Either the two things are going to happen here. Element Hero Shadow King said, I honestly have a bad feeling the PS5 Pro for the customer calls. You're almost spending near $1,000 because of warranties, taxes. I mean, again, those accessories, you don't have to buy them. And again, you don't have to buy the PS5 Pro. You don't have to buy the accessories. You don't have to buy the stand. And if someone is buying those things, it's because they've made a decision that they see value in those things. I think the proper analogy, TSWS gaming, is that you talk about Ruth Chris, they used to sell cheaper steaks. One, Ruth Chris has never sold cheaper steaks. That's never been their mantra. Console gaming's never been cheap, per se. High-end console gaming. And I went back at the start of the show. If you look at the launch of the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 in 2013 is the equivalent to paying $500 and... Let me look this up again.
Where my cheap steak at?
Oh, let me do the Xbox One.
BRAP, you got my cheap steak? Ruth Chris?
The Xbox One was $499 when it released in 2013. So the Xbox... Hold on a sec here.
I know this man ain't just ignoring me and my cheap steak request.
So this is why I say, so I don't agree with your analogy here, TSWS, because again, Ruth Chris has always sold expensive steaks. If they raise the price of their steaks, it's because they've always sold expensive steaks. Console gaming has always been expensive. If you don't believe me, TSWS, if you bought a Xbox One at launch in 2013 at $500, that is the same as you paying $675.65 today. And I get it. I understand. Consumers look at relative pricing, at the price when they go to the register. They're not thinking about microeconomics or making that adjustment for inflation. But my point of bringing that up is your money, $500, is the equivalent of $675 today.
Can't believe this, man. Got me muted right now.
If you bought the PlayStation 4 in 2013, that's the equivalent to paying $540 today. And the reason the reason why I bring that up is just to drive home the point that what's up, Gabe? Forte, I can't hear you because I'm having issues with my headset. So I'm not ignoring you. I didn't even know you were in here. So I'm sorry, Forte. But I'm having actually audio issues like with my headset, so I can't hear you.
Oh. That's bad.
I think Forte's talking, but I can't hear him. Yeah, I got to get a new set of headsets, Forte, because I think I'm having issues with the headsets that I have. Something's
Listen,
going on.
man,
I can't hear.
Listen, chat. We gonna have to fix this. This man up here talking about buying a PS5 Pro, and he got a busted headset. That don't make no sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Forte. I can't hear you because
that's fine. Chat, I love you guys. Make sure y'all tell BRAP that he needs to stop being cheap and go out and buy a headset before he thinks about buying a PS5 Pro.
Yeah, I know you guys can hear, but I can't hear him. I know you guys can hear him.
This man is being cheap. Tell him Forte said stop being cheap and go buy a headset.
No, I'm not. Trust me, I wouldn't ignore Forte. I welcome any time he can make the show. He's probably working right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my point. That consoles are just the high, and I do believe in the high-end console space. Yeah, I mean, TSWS, I don't disagree with you that the consumers don't look at relative pricing. My only point to you, TSWS, and bringing up, when doing the math, is that consoles have always been expensive. That's my point. That console gaming has always been expensive. And so when you were trying to make that when you make the comment about Ruth Chris, you're saying, well, Ruth Chris, if they used to sell cheap steaks, like no, like console gaming's never been cheap. That's my point. Forte said that, yeah. Well, Forte, if you're listening, I just discovered this problem, or else I would have bought another headset. Let me text Gaming Forte real quick. But again, I mean, I just go back to this point. It is an optional consumer product. You don't have to buy it. No one is forcing you. But look, people need to understand something. Console gaming is a luxury experience. It always has been. It's why I bring up the prices of consoles. If you bought an Atari 2600 in 1977, that's equivalent to paying $1,000 today. And if something is too expensive for you, whether it's consoles or a vehicle or a GPU, then you need to think about what the other options are for you. You know, I mean, as consumers, we're not entitled to the high end of high end at cheap prices. That's just not the way the market works, or the way consumer products are priced. I'm not entitled to a cheap Lamborghini, as much as I would hope that would happen. I'm aware enough that I'm just not that target demographic. I'm not the consumer that Lamborghini's making that product for. I'm very aware of that. But at least with gaming, and I wish people would consider the other options. If something's too expensive for you, consider the other options. You have the PlayStation 5, $500. You have the discless version the digital version for $450. You know, if that's too expensive for you, if you want the cheapest entry to current gen gaming, you have the Xbox Series S. I'm just texting Forte right now. So I think I got a little derailed here in my rant. So I appreciate the dialogue. No, TSWS gaming. Console gaming's always been expensive. Always. I just gave the example. If you bought an Xbox One in 2013, that's the equivalent of you paying, what did I say, 600 and, well, let me do the math again. That's equivalent of you paying almost $700 today. $500 in 2013 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $675 today. So think about that for a second. So that's why I'm saying it's always been an expensive hobby. Was the Wii expensive? What was the launch price of the Wii? Well, again, TSWS. Come on, was the Wii expensive? Let me just mention this. If you want high-end console gaming experience, that's always been expensive. Okay, you have cheaper options. Those cheaper options aren't going to give you the same high-end experience, and that's okay. That goes back to what I was saying about market stratification. But generally speaking, console gaming has been very expensive. Nintendo has carved itself a piece of the market that wants low cost of entry for games. And again, the Pro is not for everyone. The Pro is an enthusiast console device. The Wii was not on par with the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. It just wasn't. But historically speaking, TSWS, console gaming's been very expensive. I gave example. The launch of the Sega Saturn was $400 in 1995. $400. That was a lot of money back then. $400 in 1995 TSWS is the equivalent of paying $826 today, or is equivalent to, I'm sorry, $400 today is worth $826 today. That's the equivalent today. $400 in 1995, the price of the Sega Saturn at launch, it was equivalent to $826 today. Let's look at launch of PlayStation 1. All right, PlayStation launch price was $300. $300 in 1995. All right, so the PlayStation 1 launched in 1995 at $300. That is $619 today. That is my point. These high-end consoles have, and generally speaking, historically speaking, have always been expensive. It's an expensive hobby. The Pro is an enthusiast device. It is for a small population of people that want high-end experiences or higher-end performance experiences for their games. It just, it just is what it is. Console video gaming has always been expensive. We used to pay $50 for video games back in 1996. A $50 video game in 1996 is $100.24 today. Gaming is a luxury product. Console gaming. Even place. Let's go back to somebody brought up the Wii U. It's the Wii U. The Wii U launched at $300. In 2012. $300, right? Yeah, $300 2012. All right, so the Wii U launching in 2012 at $300 is equivalent to $411 today. Mario Heat, so this is the difference between luxury items and necessities. Groceries are a necessity. So I completely understand why people would be upset about the increased cost of groceries. I just paid $7 for, I forget what size of Tropicana orange juice. Ridiculous. But that's the difference between a necessity and a luxury item. IGA just wrote an article. The $700 PS5 Pro is too much for too little. This is where I talk about the coverage of That's why I think the media is having the wrong conversations. I mean, it's hard to say that. For some consumers, it might be, but for other consumers, it's not. And again, we don't have any hands-on to make a definitive statement like that. Absolutely, if we get hands-on, in Digital Foundry and some other sites, do the hands-on and they come to the conclusion based on the performance of games, price of performance isn't there, then yeah, we can have that conversation. Absolutely. And, one of the things that, IGN talks about this article, if you own physical copies of PS5 games or any of your back catalog for that matter, you'll have to buy a PS5 disc drive for additional $80. Yeah, you will. So, but this is the issue I have. This is where it comes down to, and this is what the article should discuss, that consumers have different requirements. And so some consumers, and I talked to one consumer on Twitter who was like, no, I'm not buying this because I have a back catalog of physical disc and I don't want to have to pay the additional $80. I'm not buying it. Well, yeah, makes sense. Based on the current SKU that they're looking at, it doesn't check their requirements. I've seen other consumers say, "Hey, you know what? I have digital. I value having access to my consumer catalog, and I'm willing to pay the additional $80. It's worth it for me to be able to play those games." The one thing I'll say about the article, which is true here, is that when PlayStation 3 announced in 2006 the cost, PlayStation 3 announced in 2006 the cost of $600, a number of people scoffed at so hard that Sony was forced to drop the price by $100 a month later. Yeah. That is how the market works. And so again, we just need to see how the market plays out here. Street Shadow with the $10 super chat says, I think the issue I see sometimes is that people see gaming as a necessary hobby as opposed to a luxury activity. It is. You don't have to get it, nor does it break the current PS5. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You don't have to buy these items. They aren't necessities. I mean, Bender Strings, perhaps they have exhausted what the current PlayStation 5 does. But again, Bender, they are doing a mid-gen refresh for the enthusiast. This is no different than the PS4 generation when they released the PS4 Pro. Mario Heath's dead right. Look, vote with your wallet. They'll act accordingly. They will. Absolutely. But it's just weird that we've had this. Who is the PS5 Pro for? I've seen a lot of that conversation. It's if you don't see value in it, it's certainly not for you. It's for a enthusiast consumer, just like the PS4 Pro was. And I certainly understand the initial sticker shock. I had it myself. But I'm not doing mental gymnastics over this. I understand what it is. I'm waiting to see how the games perform, and then I'll make a decision then. Who is the 5000 series card for? That's for those people who maybe are at the 30 series that want to, It is interesting. Like I've seen that with when the 40 series came out. People were like, "Oh, who the 40 series for?" Well, I would imagine probably people who were on the 20 series or maybe still the 10 series cards and didn't upgrade to the 30 series, and now they're ready to upgrade. And there's people that were on the 30 series, like Slow-Mo, and they upgraded. I'm still on the 30 series. I'm not upgrading right now. I'm going to wait until I feel the need to upgrade based on how my games perform, based on what my requirements are for those games performing. I just think that I just feel like, again, what I said earlier, I feel like this conversation around the Pro has been a bit exhausting. A lot of mental gymnastics, a lot of things that should be obvious to consumers, for whatever reason, aren't in this case. That, in fact, that this is not for everyone, that this is a high-end enthusiast product. That, and Sony knows this. They've seen the numbers of the PlayStation 4 Pro. Eddie Hart, the £5 super chat says, will you upgrade to PS5 Pro, BRAP? I don't have intentions to do that right now, although the trade-in value at GameStop could sway me to upgrade earlier than I probably would want to in the event that I do pick it up. But I do want to see how games perform on the PS5 Pro, hands-on. You know, get kind of like a breakdown from Digital Foundry. I also want to see what other games are coming out in the future for, for PlayStation 5. Also, why are a lot of PC gamers interested in PS5 Pro? It shouldn't bother them. I don't know. I haven't seen that. I think maybe it stemmed from the fact that people were trying to make the argument that you could build an equivalent of a PS5 Pro for like $700, which isn't true. Maybe that's where that came from, but I haven't really seen that. Ooh, Forte. Ooh, I think it looks like the trade value has just gone down for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox Series X consoles. Forte's just messaged me. He's like, "Yep, you better get on it to trade them soon." While I think the 580 will be expensive. I mean, I think we can expect the 48 to be over $1,000. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, look, I definitely over $1,000. I mean, it was over $1,000 last time. So I wouldn't be, I mean, it's definitely going to be, the 580 is definitely going to be over $1,000. Neil says 1,200 to 1,400. Maybe. That could be it. Yeah, I'll check out. Maybe we need to check out Moore's Law is Dead. Problems with the PS5 Pro. What problems? I'm always a little cautious when people are saying there's problems with the PS5 Pro. When, I mean, like what? Like, again, I think you don't have those conversations if you're talking about performance. You don't have those conversations till you actually have had you've had the ability to play it hands on or play games hands on with it. I think then we could talk about it. If he's talking about like the price point, I mean, maybe, but then the market will dictate whether or not the price works or not. Yeah, I mean that's my point, Brian. It's like what kind of problems can you find with a system that's not out yet? And this is the issue I have with the conversation around gaming. There's to Brian's point, there's just manufactured drama. There's just stuff that, like, if you're saying, and I don't know what this gentleman's saying, I don't know what the elemental hero. I don't know what Mudahar is saying. What he's talking about, the good points on the problems on the PS5 Pro. I don't. He talks about the CPU missing a disk drive, physical media, probably on the PS5 Pro. Okay, but who's that a problem for? That's a problem for people whose requirements are a better CPU, a PS5 Pro with a disk drive. Then yeah, that's a problem for those people. But that doesn't apply to the entire segment of the population. And if you're looking at data to look at maybe why Sony would go towards a diskless PS5 Pro, well, the data shows us that more people are buying games digitally than they are physically. So I don't know how that's a problem. The elemental hero, again, it's where I kind of like sigh a little bit. It's like, okay, but that's not a problem for everyone. Like I don't know that I would sit there. I mean, if I was talking about the PS5 Pro, I wouldn't say, oh, it's a problem because it doesn't have a disk drive, unless I was a consumer that was considering buying it, and I would describe it as, for me, BRAP, the consumer, I find it, it doesn't meet my requirements because it doesn't have these things. But I think what people often do, content creators, is like they just appeal to or try to manufacture this anger. Oh, it's a problem. It doesn't have this or that. Okay, for some people it is, but not for all. It's the PS5 Pro missing the CPU. Sony didn't talk about the CPU. Watch some ordinary video. His video is called "The PS5 is a Scam." What? Yeah, Element Hero, I'm not going to watch people who title their stuff PS5 is a scam. That is basically like that is engaging to the lowest common denominator. That's not anything I'm interested in listening to. I mean, I'm just not. The scam? I mean, how? I mean, if that guy wants to say that the PS5 Pro, he feels like it's a scam himself, and all the power to him. But to apply that label generally across the consumer space, that's just ridiculous. So I'm saying, like, it's kind of these tabloid type conversations. Yeah, no, I get it. It's for clicks. It's ridiculous. We are dumbing down our conversation around this hobby that we all love for the sake of clicks. It's ridiculous. I'd love for us to have a better conversation around gaming than solely having a conversation around gaming based on clicks. Like, I'm not interested in that. This doesn't add any value to the conversation. It just dumbs it down. Creates false narratives. Makes people angry. Why are people getting angry and up in arms over video games? Video games are supposed to be fun, entertainment. We've got enough shit going on in the real world, in our real lives, that get us angry. You talked about the CPU being missing. Okay, so what? The CPU didn't get an upgrade. Okay. If he felt like if his requirement for the PS5 Pro, one of his requirements for the PS5 Pro is to have an upgraded CPU, he shouldn't buy it. It's not that big. It's not that big of a deal. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand, like, the need. Oh, it's a scam. So don't buy it. He's a tech person. So what? He doesn't have the self-awareness to understand that for some people. And by the way, if he's a tech person, he'd understand that most games are GPU bound. Most games that come out are GPU bound and CPU bound on consoles. That's number one. But two, it's like, okay, if they didn't do a CPU update, like, okay, and so what? It's not for him then. But to call it a scam, I mean, that's for clicks. Just dumb. I mean, I think this is where Elemental Hero, this is where I would say, like, ask yourself this question. Who is this for? Is it for you? Like, let's just critically think about this. Who's this platform? Who's this console for? Is it for the average console gamer? Is it for the console gamer that wants a mid-gen refresh to get an upgrade in performance of their games? Like you should start questioning these content creators. Question them. I mean, has he had hands-on experience with PS5 Pro to call it a scam? I mean, this isn't, let's say, the mental gymnastics, the manufactured narratives. I mean, this is very similar to what I remember with the PS4 Pro, the Xbox One X. Remember the whole narrative around the PlayStation Portal? Who asked for this? It's one of the best-selling accessories for Sony. I mean, and then we got people like Joe K. The PS5 Pro will be a bad flop, just like PSVR 2. Based on what? Do you know Sony's OKRs for the PlayStation 5 Pro? No. And by the way, Joe K., we don't console war here. We don't come in here and make definitive statements that aren't based on anything tangible. So if you're looking for a show where you can just make unsubstantiated comments like the PS5 Pro will be a bad flop, then yeah, you can go elsewhere, because that's not the show. Yeah, but the Elemental Hero, I understand they didn't upgrade anything to the CPU. That's I mean, I know that. I mean, but calling it a scam because the CPU didn't get upgrade. I mean, I'm not going to waste my time watching that video for what? Why? He's not telling me already something I don't know. Street says one of the best things I did was unfollow so-called tech streamers, Mudahar, Alms and Gold, or focus on their niche opinions as if they're yeah. I mean, I'm also very careful about what quote unquote tech streamers that I follow as well. You know, I do follow Gamers Nexus, Digital Foundry, or some other ones I follow. I can't remember now. Yeah, I mean, Ryan, like, why would I waste my time? I mean, if you're putting out it's firstly, it's disingenuous. If you're at the bat in this case, this console isn't even released yet, right? And you're out here saying, oh, well, it's a scam. What? It hasn't even come out yet. You know, but people need those dopamine hits. They'd rather be enraged and actually have thoughtful conversation. over video games, which is crazy. I mean, I don't know how Soldier Rev would know. I mean, that's his opinion. The graphics are good already, but the point is that when you add when you improve ray tracing capabilities, the graphics are actually much better. And I know that from playing on PC. So I don't necessarily agree with Soldier Rev on that. I mean, you can actually make, with ray tracing, you can actually make the games look visibly better, especially on first party. Yeah, Randy, I don't disagree with you. That's unfortunate. Like, I never look at like what company's winning. I don't care. Them winning doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't like line my pockets with money. I think people are focused on who's winning too much instead of just enjoying video games. I think it's part of the problem. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Corey. People do go online for confirmation bias. Absolutely. And again, if you feel like if a requirement of yours was that there should be a new CPU or CPU boost, don't buy the PlayStation 5 Pro. Just don't buy it. Again, it's an optional product for you to buy. So I don't care that see the PlayStation Pro got brutally ratioed on YouTube. Yes, so did the PS5. So and. I mean, what does that mean? Again, we're jumping to conclusions, making definitive statements on what? There must be a reason for that? Just means that the people that watched it didn't like it? But who are those people? You don't know who those people are. Are they people that the PS5 Pro is geared to? Are they the addressable market for the PS5 Pro, Joe Key? I mean, who are these people? Are they console warriors? I mean, like, who are these people? Tell me who they are. Are they PlayStation fans? Are they Democrats? Are they Republicans? Independents? Who are they? Who are these people that are ratioing this? Are they people that created multiple accounts to further, ratio the YouTube reveal? Wasn't a Call of Duty reveal also negatively ratioed as well? I believe so, if I'm not mistaken. And how did that game do? But the point is that the PS5 Vita did get ratioed. And we see, and the point of bringing that up, if you could, if you could continue that thought process if you took that thought process to the next step, or that thought to the next step, despite the PS5 video didn't get ratioed this badly, it got ratioed, and then you see how the market reacted. The PlayStation 5 is doing very well. Okay, so Concord got disliked heavily, and so are we using so by chance Concord gets ratioed and doesn't do well. So now we're going to apply that as the rubric for everything else. It's not how that works. But what's like Maker of Chaos? I mean, are you interested in the PlayStation 5 Pro? And this is the other thing that I don't understand. Like, people are making commentary that are making definitive statements about the performance of a product they're not even interested in. I mean, do you do this about Lamborghini? Say, hey, you know what, that Lamborghini, that's not gonna do well in the market. It's too expensive. It's just weird. It's weird that people who, and again. So you are interested in the PS5 Pro? You're going to buy it day one? Oh, you don't even have a PlayStation 5. Okay, so So you're not going to pay for the PS5 Pros. Okay, so don't buy it then. Oh, you have a PS5. Okay, so don't buy the PS5 Pro. If it's not for you, why are you worried about how it does in the market? Or whether it's ratioed? I mean, who cares? I mean, why are you concerned about if the PS5 Pro is a flop, Joe Key? Like, who cares? If it flops at launch, then Sony will just adjust the price and it'll probably sell more. That's what companies do when they overprice consumer goods. I don't understand like what the fascination of it flopping, or I don't get it. Why do you care if other people care? What I'm doing is I'm adding nuance to the conversation. That's the point, BV. It's not that I care so much as much as I'm providing nuance. But I appreciate you trying to obfuscate the conversation, BV. You can have an option about anything you want as a customer. What? Yeah, I mean, you can have an option. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that. I don't know what you're trying to say, Lord Jarinza. Andy Hart, the $5 pound, says, I apologize, Kenny, if my super chat was out of order. And RV, my point is, as consumers, my point is, as consumers, we just don't do this with other products. That's my biggest point. It's not about caring that other people care. It's that bringing light to the fact that we don't do this with other products. We don't do the mental gymnastics or whether or not the iPhone 16 Pro Max is going to fail, or whether the next Lamborghini is going to fail, or whether the Yukon Denali is going to fail because it's priced so high, or because the video on YouTube for the Yukon Denali got ratioed. Yeah, OBJ did not. No, I don't disagree with you. OBJ says, you see what I'm talking about, BRAP. Just the wildest hay for an optional product I've never seen. Yeah, I don't get it. That's my point. Like, this is an optional device. You guys, this isn't like having your federal taxes increased or state taxes increased. I mean, performance vehicles? Who, Lord Jarinza? Maybe for that addressable market. But again, I mean, I don't do it. I see a performance vehicle, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need that. But I'm not, I'm not having conversations whether or not it's going to flop in the market. I don't care. If it's not for me, I just move on. Dr. Killshot says, I got a Corolla who asked for a Lexus. Yeah, the PS4 Pro sold about 15% of the install base of the PlayStation 4. Yeah, Ryan, I kind of don't. Ryan, I don't disagree with you per se. I don't disagree with you. I mean, I don't look, Lord Jorinza. I don't see it everywhere. I mean, maybe it happens, but I don't see this. Yeah, but even most hardcore fan not interested about it. About what? About the PS5 Pro? How do you know that? How do you know hardcore fans aren't interested in place? Oh, even most hardcore PS fans are not interested about it. How do you know that, Jokey? How do you know that? Was there a survey that went out that I didn't see? Well, I can tell you, Lord Jorinza, I could tell you that with other consumer products. The point is this, Lord Junior, and I've been in other consumer products, or I engage with other consumer products, high-end TVs being one of them. I don't see this kind of stuff. I don't see this as much as the PC space. Obviously, you have your AMD, NVIDIA camp, just getting the vibe from PlayStation YouTube creators. I mean, again, they're a very small subset of the market. Guys, we cannot judge or make definitive statements based on vibes from YouTube creators. BB says, do a poll in your chat. Why would I do a poll? There's only 113 people here. I don't even know if any of these people here are PlayStation, or if these are PlayStation consumers that are here. I don't know if these people are high-end console consumers or in that demographic who, for fun. Why? For what? I'm not 5, dude. I mean, I don't see Lord Jarinza, I think that's your name. I don't see people arguing about the price of the C4s and the G4s. Oh, I can't believe LG raised the price. The G4, oh my God, it's a flop. I mean, the poll would just give you an idea from the chat. But I'm saying, okay, but even the auto industry, I follow SUVs quite a bit based on the SUV I own. I don't see that kind of conversation happening amongst SUVs. I'm talking about luxury SUVs. Anyhow, all right. So I do need to get back to work here. I do want to thank everyone here. OBJ Don says, I could see if they were putting out a new generation console after 4 years. This is literally just an optional version of what you already have. What's the hate for? Yeah, I don't disagree with OBJ Don. We know in news today, AMD's landed the contract with PlayStation to make the PlayStation 6 chips. Per leak court documents, it sounds like there may not be a PS6 for another 4 years. 4 more years, I should say. Which now console generation, and that's the other thing too. People don't realize. I don't know I don't know the age of everyone here in the live chat, but you got to remember something too. If you look at the history, I really encourage everyone to study the history of the console industry and the gaming industry. We used to get new consoles every 4 to 5 years. All right. We would spend, as I mentioned, the PlayStation 1 was $300 when it released. We would have that console for like 4 or 5 years, and then the new console would come out. I think the PlayStation 2 came out in 2000. It's about every 4 or 5 years we get new consoles, and then that would be you would pay more for that. And so what's happened now is that the console generations post 360 have been about 7 years now, with last year being the first console generation where we got mid-gen refreshes, because they are people that were used to upgrading after 4 to 5 years. But again, these are upgrades. These are options. You're not mandated to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. You're not mandated to buy the $600 Series X that's coming out with 2 terabytes of hard drive. If the PS5 Pro is too expensive or it doesn't meet your use case or meet your requirements, buy the PlayStation 5. If you need cheaper access to video games, buy the Series S, buy the Nintendo Switch. You know, it's like handheld devices, the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck. They're, what, $500, $700 for a handheld device? I don't see value in that, but I'm not yelling at ROG or Steam Deck for making those items. I'm not looking at YouTube ratios and saying, oh well, you know, the ROG Ally is going to flop. It's going to be the Steam Deck Pro is going to flop. I don't care. It's not for me. I just move on. I mean, the ROG Ally X is $800 for a handheld. I mean, I don't. It's not for me, but I'm okay with that. I don't see the value in an $800 handheld device with a small screen. It's not for me. I'm not doing mental gymnastics about it. Doesn't meet my requirements as a gamer. I just move on. I don't yell at other people who find value in the ROG Ally X. They want to spend $800 on a handheld device. Hey, that's fine. Clearly, there's a market for those individuals that want high-end handheld gaming experiences. Corey Massey, that's funny because it actually does happen. Yeah, exactly. Ryan, I'm not yelling at my neighbor for buying a car that I don't think is worth it. Here in the UK, 700 is like 900 USD. What about that? What about it? Like what? Like, okay, so what? Sell devices day one, baby. And there's going to be people that are day one on this. I don't care. More power to them. Yeah, the N64 was... How much was the N64 launch? It was expensive. N64... And here's the thing, too. Like, what we've seen with video games, and this is what I said earlier, gaming's always been an expensive hobby. I mean, you know, $50... You had $60 games on the N64, which is like the equivalent to like $100 today. See, the N64... Came out in 1996, I believe. Yep, September 1996. Yeah, so the Nintendo 64 was originally, it was intended to cost $250. But then they reduced the price by $50 so it could be more competitive with the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, which both have been lowered to $200. I think it's something to be said for competition here. But let's see here, $199. Let's see, $200. $200 in 1996 is worth... So $200 in 1996 is $401 today. All right. So, all right, I'm not doing any more math now. I'm done. OBJ Don says, I don't even know if I'm getting it at launch because right now I'm just playing 2K and I don't need it for that. But I'm definitely getting it for before GTA 6 Wolverine and that Captain America game. Brap, do you think Nintendo may announce their new console pretty soon? I think the Nintendo Switch run has hit critical mass now. I mean, we're seeing it because you're seeing a decline in console sales for the Nintendo Switch. But they're going to squeeze every last penny they can out of it because their margins are so high. Their profit margins are so high, Nintendo. But I would imagine we see a Nintendo Switch 2 next year. I don't know when that announcement's going to take place, but I could definitely see it coming next year. Yeah, this is a great point right here. Corey Massey says, the argument that something is disliked by a specific subset of people doesn't substantiate the claim people in general don't want it. That is very true because, again, I mean, if you're claiming that a specific subset of people, you don't know, and that's probably a very small subset of the consumer base. Not all the consumers are interacting on social media or involved in YouTube. Like only like hardcore gamers make about 15% of the video game market. And not all hardcore gamers are on social media. So if you're running with a small sample size, it's not a way to come to any kind of definitive statement about the excitement or lack of excitement for a consumer product. I mean, you could sit there and say, yeah, this based on what we're seeing on YouTube, there's not excitement for it, But then again, it's like Again, I mean, but then again, you'd have to ask yourself, like, who are the people that are not excited? Are these the people that are the that are part of that addressable market for a higher end console? Do you know that? Like, how do we know that? And this is where you like that old saying, "The devil's in the details." You really need to drill down and think about those things. And I don't think people do that. They just see things at a very surface level and don't ask those critical questions. All right, everyone, I do got to get back to work, but I want to thank everyone for joining me in this BRAP rant, and I really appreciate the support as always. Please do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. We'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. OBJ down. There wasn't a lot of interest in Helldivers 2, and then we saw what happened with that. So, I mean, those things, it's not always a one-to-one per se, but yeah, we'll be back this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for a regular scheduled BRAP. So come back and hang out with us then. And again, thank all the moderators in the live chat. Appreciate every one of you, and thank you everyone who took the time to listen to this live show. And for those later on who catch the replay, thank you. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts, and then we will again we will see you Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care, everyone.